There are many myths and misconceptions associated with the topic of radiation. Not everyone knows what radiation is and what its effects are, especially given the fact that radiation is not visible. So, it turns out that everyone has some idea of radiation but doesn't know exactly how to deal with it, and in general, what this word means. When people talk about radiation, they mean ionizing radiation, thanks to which it's possible to see through a person. Unfortunately, humanity didn't immediately understand how dangerous radiation is and how to use it correctly. Historical examples such as chocolate and water with radium, children's play sets and cosmetics with radium are proof of this. Today, scientists have finally been able to understand the dangers and benefits of radiation and use it in industry, medicine, sterilizing products, and power generation. Let's figure out what myths about radiation exist. Myth 1. Radioactive objects always glow. This myth can be considered only partially true. Radium impurities can cause a slight green glow on contact with paint. As for the uranium salts, they do not glow at all. Generally, most people have learned about the glow of radioactive objects from video games and movies, but this is not entirely true. An example of a glow in the hands of clocks that were made in the 20s of the 20th century. To make the clock hands glow in the dark, radium was added to a paint based on zinc sulfide and copper. That's why the hands of the clock glowed green. So if you have such a clock, then the hands on them are still glowing and the radiation from them is still going on. We can also encounter luminescence in nature. With plants and fireflies, however, the luminescence is not related to radiation at all. Radioluminescence can only occur when interacting with other substances. Myth 2. Radiation is useful in small doses. When using radon baths, the patient is immersed in radon mineral water or uses air that is enriched with radon-222. However, there is no confirmed scientific evidence about the usefulness of radon-222. Many attribute this to the placebo effect. Myth 3. Fluorography and X-rays are dangerous. The main danger of radiation is the amount of exposure and depends on the type of radiation. X-rays and fluorography involve the use of very small doses of radiation. The natural radiation background is formed around Earth and people. This is due to radioactive substances that are in the soil, air, water, cosmic radiation, nuclear energy production, and many others. The real danger comes only from enormous doses of radiation which can kill a person. Such methods of body examination as X-rays and computer tomography contains micron parts of radiation which are not life-threatening at all. Myth 4. You can use alcohol to remove radionuclides from your body. Scientists all over the world warn that any strong alcoholic drinks won't be able to help in the fight against the possible effects of radiation on the body in the future. It's precisely at the time of exposure to a small degree of radiation that alcohol can protect against radiation, as has been confirmed by some studies. However, preparation in advance or after years will not give any effect, except for harm to health. Myth 5. People who are constantly exposed to radiation develop immunity. Radioactive radiation acts in a completely different way than many viruses to which immunity can be developed. Scientists have not researched this topic, and in the scientific world, almost no one believes in the possibility of an organism getting used to radioactive radiation. Myth 6. A person exposed to radiation becomes a source of radiation. A person who has received a dose of radiation doesn't become a radiation emitter. On the other hand, his clothes that have come into contact with the radioactive materials can be dangerous to others. That's why such clothing must be disposed of. Only a person whose body was injected with the radioactive drugs can be called a source of radiation, but for a very short time, because such drugs quickly disintegrate and do not pose a threat to others. Myth 7. Iodine protects from radiation. Iodine can protect the body from the effects of radiation, but it may help a little. It accumulates in the thyroid gland. When a radioactive release occurs, there is a large amount of radioactive iodine-131 on objects and in the air. Our thyroid gland absorbs any iodine, even radioactive. Therefore, when emitting radiation, it's recommended to take iodine so that the thyroid gland has received everything it needs, and radioactive iodine can be exerted from the body. The fact that it is necessary to take iodine or other drugs and vitamins should be reported by the Ministry of Emergencies. Myth 8. Radiation causes mutation. Thanks to sci-fi movies, many people believe that radiation can cause superpowers in humans. The truth is, the effect of radiation on the body can lead to mutations, but completely different, so a person won't become a new superhero. Radiation exposure can damage DNA helices. Quite often, the damage affects one helix, and then the damaged areas are replaced by nucleotides. In the case when both DNA helices are damaged, the genetic information is lost, which can lead to the launching of the cell's self-destruction mechanism. Approximately the same principle is followed by radiation therapy for cancer patients. Even cancer cells begin to self-destruct when serious structural changes occur in them. However, there is another side to such therapy, when a healthy cell can become cancerous when it is damaged. You don't have to worry too much, even if you forgot your sunscreen. Being in the shade, the background radiation won't cause you serious harm, because a person gets used to it. However, if you're in an area of high radiation or a hot country, without proper protection, your epithelial cells can become damaged, which in the worst case can lead to the development of melanoma. Myth 9. There is constant radiation from computers and TVs. If you use a computer with an LCD monitor, then you have nothing to worry about. The misconception originated with the inscription "low radiation," which was translated incorrectly. The correct translation is low radiation, in the case of the monitor, electromagnetic radiation. However, a small amount of radiation may actually be emitted from old CRT monitors. Myth 10. Radiation is a human handiwork. In many ways, the death of people and cases of radioactive contamination are associated with human activities. So many believe that radiation was created by people. Well, this assumption is incorrect, and radiation is associated with natural origin. It has always been on our planet and will be after us. The sun's rays are also radiation that passes through the filter of our atmosphere. In hotter countries, where the sun's rays pass directly, the background radiation is higher than at the poles. Space has its own radiation, which are high-energy particles that ionize atoms. They can lead to structural changes and the destruction of molecules in our body. In some atoms, nuclei are unstable, so they can go into a stable state by emitting particles. This is how alpha, beta, and gamma radiation are produced. Such particles are everywhere, and that's why there is natural background radiation on our planet. Myth 11. Lead protects against radiation. Many believe that lead is the only way to protect against radiation. There is some truth here, but this is not completely correct information. There are different types and kinds of radiation that emit different particles. Not all of these particles can be trapped by lead. For some, it could be useless and of no use at all. For example, alpha rays are effectively trapped by thin tissue. Wearing clothes and glasses prevents radiation from reaching your skin. You can't be harmed by this radiation. Tin foil will be sufficient to protect against beta radiation, which has a lower ionizing capacity. Gamma radiation has a small ionizing power, but the penetrating power of this radiation is the highest. Therefore, such radiation is considered the most dangerous because it's difficult to protect oneself against it. It's against gamma radiation that lead can protect you. It will be more effective and will be able to trap more particles due to its density. Nevertheless, lead can't be considered magical protection against radiation. Its layer must be thick enough to protect against serious radiation, Therefore, in the construction of bunkers and nuclear power plants, the thickest layer of concrete is used, which is not as toxic as lead and is much easier to operate and build. Myth 12. It's impossible to protect yourself from radiation in everyday life. Anyone can protect their family and themselves if they buy a device such as household dosimeter. It can check the room for radiation cleanliness, check items and foods for radioactivity, check construction and finishing materials, the place for the construction of the building, and much more. When you are in the blazing sun, always use sunscreen and get into the shade whenever possible. Avoid traveling to places where radiation testing has taken place and where disasters have occurred. Like any natural factor that surrounds us, radiation has positive and negative aspects. It's worthwhile to make good use of what radiation can do for people, without forgetting about its risks.